Welcome, everybody, to Black and Gold Weekly, a weekly Boston Bruins show here on YouTube, brought to you in partnership with Black and Gold Productions. I am your host, John. It is episode 64, and it is the last episode of the regular season for the Bruins this year. They've locked themselves into a playoff spot. We don't know for sure who their opponent is going to be, but it's certainly looking like the Carolina Hurricanes in round number 1. And we are just a few days away from NHL playoff action. We're recording this on Wednesday, so by the time this show comes out on Friday, we probably will know who the Bruins' opponent will be. But as of us recording this right now, we do not. I am joined once again by Danny here, my co-host. Danny, what's going on, man? Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. And ready to talk some Bruins hockey?
Absolutely. I can't believe it's playoff time, one of the best times of the year, and in a loaded Eastern Conference, it's going to be fun. Even if you're not a Bruins fan, there's going to be great matchups for each playoff series, and I really can't wait. Between the basketball playoffs for the Celtics right now and the Bruins in the playoffs, this is, that time of year where it's truly great to be a Boston sports fan.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. And this is pretty much going to be a playoff preview episode for the Bruins as we're down to the end of the regular season here and getting ready for that postseason action, which, like you said, it's incredible. There's nothing like playoff hockey, and I can't wait to get it started. So before we get going, I do want to give a big thank you to Mark Allred and the entire team at Black and Gold Productions. This show would not be happening without them, so a big thank you to all of them for their support. Also want to draw your attention down to the description of the video. There are 3 links in the description, one for Boston Bruins apparel, one for NHL apparel from any team, and a third for NCAA college apparel. If you are in the market for any of those things, please check out those links in the description. Awesome variety of products, all team branded, and it really does help out the show a lot. So, really would mean a lot if you guys could check those out. But let's get into it here, Danny. As the Bruins have, had an interesting last couple of weeks. It's been a couple weeks since we've done a show. So in that time, the Bruins have kind of gotten over their injury problems just in time for the playoffs. They've clinched a playoff spot. Their opponent possibilities have been whittled down a little bit. Now that it's either going to be Toronto or it's going to be Carolina, with the very high likelihood it being Carolina. And, Boston's had some big wins. They beat the Rangers. They beat the Panthers. They've also had some tough losses, particularly when those players were still out of the lineup. Losing to Ottawa wasn't great. Getting shut out by the Penguins last week wasn't great. But it seems like, now that they're healthy, everybody came back against the Rangers on Saturday. It seemed the Bruins are 3-0 since everybody's come back. Pastrnak, Lindholm, Ullmark, all those guys. That seems to be a good sign for the Bruins as they head into the postseason here, that they've got these guys back in the lineup and they're playing very well.
Well, it's kind of been the theme for the second half of the season for the Bruins. Yes, they've been playing well, but especially when you look back on the Marchand, the time frame when Marchand was suspended. Mm-hmm. And the Bergeron injury, when that all hit at once, the theme there was tread water.
Yeah.
Now here in April, when the injury bug seems to have hit the entire team, and it did hit the entire team, the theme again, at least for me, over the last couple of weeks was tread water. So although, we've had some strong wins and, some losses weren't great, the Bruins have still managed to do that, and I'm okay with that, quite frankly.
Yeah, overall, it's still been solid. Boston over 100 points on the year now. They've locked in their playoff spot. Looking like they're going to finish as the top wildcard team and play Carolina in round number 1. They still mathematically could catch the Tampa Bay Lightning, both teams with 2 games remaining and only 3 points separating them. But Tampa, as well as the Bruins have been playing, winning 3 in a row. Tampa's won 4 in a row. So every time the Bruins win, the Lightning also do. And that's kind of set it up here for the Bruins to finish in that top wild card spot, because as well as they're playing, they're not able to gain any ground because Tampa's also playing very well.
Well, it seems like April, May, June, the postseason and Tampa Bay go together like peanut butter and jelly. They know what to
Hmm.
do this time of year, and they are doing it. They had a rocky start, I believe, at the beginning of the year, rocky for them anyway. And they were able to really come together as a team, play well. The Bruins, to their credit, have played Tampa Bay
Yep.
extremely well this season. But even still, I'm not sleeping on Tampa Bay, especially when it comes to playoff time, because now, the juices get flowing a little bit, the adrenaline gets going, and postseason experience comes into play, and the Tampa Bay Lightning certainly, as you know, have a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that's won back-to-back Stanley Cups. They certainly know what to do this time of year, and they know what it takes to win in the playoffs and be successful. So, looking at it right now, I think Tampa's going to lock up that third spot most likely. They just need one more point, and they get that 3 seed. So, um, we'll see what Boston is able to do. I mean, basically, for the Bruins to move up to that third spot and play Toronto, they would obviously have to win both of their remaining games, and then they would also need Tampa to lose out, which again is the one. I think Boston could win both of their remaining games. I just don't see Tampa losing out. So. Um, I think in all likelihood it's going to be Bruins Hurricanes in round number 1. As much as Bruins Leafs would certainly get everybody stirred up and rile things up around Boston and certainly in Toronto as well, I think it's probably going to be Carolina in round 1 for us.
And quite frankly, for the Bruins' chances, I would rather see Toronto as well. I mean, if we're being honest here, the Bruins haven't exactly done well against the Hurricanes this season, to put it lightly. And
Yeah.
the playoffs are an entirely different animal. I mean, and I believe most of the Hurricanes games they played Carolina. Let's see, they played them in January. I know that,
They
right?
played them 3 times this year.
How many games before the Hampus Lindholm acquisition?
All of them were before Lindholm.
There you go. So, not that one player makes a huge difference, in terms of playing a particular opponent, because the Hurricanes are extremely, extremely good. We kind of saw the beginnings of it in the playoffs in 2019, I believe it was, where they had the talent, but they just couldn't get over the hump. Now they're over the hump and they are really good. I'll be interested to see how a player like Lindholm factors into a series with the Hurricanes. It's going to take an entire team effort, but having a solid defenseman like Lindholm will certainly help things, I would assume.
Yeah, so Boston versus Carolina this year, October 28th, Hurricanes win 3-0.
I remember
January
that game, yeah.
January 18th, Hurricanes win 7-1.
I remember
February
that game.
10th, last game of the regular season between these two. Hurricanes win 6-0. So the Hurricanes outscored the Bruins 16-1 in their season series this year, and obviously won all 3 games. Not ideal for the Bruins. However, like you said, the playoffs are a new season. Everything goes back to 0-0 at the start of the playoffs. And, you're kind of just starting from scratch at that point with a different style of play, different intensity. Obviously, Boston is a very different team now than they were back in the midpoint of the season, and certainly than they were at the beginning of the season. That they're a team that's really improved as the year's gone along and had a very good second half. So it's obviously looking at the matchup, it's not ideal, but I don't think there is an ideal matchup for the Bruins in these playoffs. Like, out of the teams that they could play, Hurricanes, Rangers, Panthers, Maple Leafs, they're all very difficult. They're all good opponents that are tough and gonna give you a run for your money. So the end of the day, I mean, Carolina, depending on their goaltending situation, and we'll talk about that in a second, could end up not being that bad of a matchup. The Bruins also have historical playoff success against Carolina. They beat them in the conference final in 2019, where they swept them out in the third round. They beat them again in the first round in 2020 when they bet the Hurricanes. So, Boston kind of has that edge, that mental edge, where they've beaten this team. But at the same time, this Hurricanes team over the last 3 to 4 years has done nothing but get better and better each season. So I think this is a very different Hurricanes team than even who the Bruins faced in 2020. They're a much better team now.
And you know where they have excelled? Player development.
Yep.
I will say it until I'm blue in the face, but the player development is the reason why the Hurricanes are here, why the Panthers are here. And, you're seeing these young teams, and we talked about this ad nauseum a couple shows ago, or maybe a month ago. I don't know. It's all been the same stuff for the past couple of months. These young teams are really, making their mark in the regular season, and they're in a good position in the playoffs. And so are the Bruins, but it just speaks to how much better certain teams have been at developing talent.
Yeah, and Carolina is one of those teams that was not very good for a number of years. They had a rough stretch where they were not very good, but what happens when you're not very good is that you get good draft picks and you can build that young talent. You can draft those players that become stars, and they've also made some very nice trades along the way as well that have really helped this team and have made them better. And you just look at the roster that they've been able to put together. Now, Carolina's been one of the top teams in the league all season. They just locked up the Metro Division last night with a win over the Rangers. And, they're a division winner for a reason, and that's a very good team. So I want to get into their goaltending situation because as bad as the Bruins have had it with Carolina this year, they're going through some issues right now with the Hurricanes, and that's in net where Freddie Anderson, their starting goaltender, who's been at a Vezina caliber this season, went down with an injury a couple weeks ago or last week, and he's out in very uncertain status for the playoffs. He's just week to week, not really sure when he's going to be able to come back. Antti Raanta is the backup. He went down with a minor injury, but it looks like that was just precautionary and that he is going to be okay. So they'll at least have Raanta for the start of the playoffs. But at that point, not having Frederik Andersen is certainly not ideal for Carolina. Your Vezina level goalie, who's had probably the best season of his career this year, all of a sudden now could maybe be not available. And then they've got Pyotr Kochetkov, who's a young Russian goaltender who's come up in the absence of Anderson, and he's played very well. But if you go into the playoffs as Carolina with Kochetkov and Raanta as your goalies as opposed to Anderson and Raanta, that's a big difference.
That's a huge difference, and it kind of evens the playing field for the Bruins a little bit because, like you've mentioned and we've mentioned, they've been having goaltending troubles of their own. So, truthfully, for better or for worse, I think one of the biggest storylines of a potential Bruins-Hurricanes series would be goaltending because both teams are not at the top of their game or where they need to be at the position. And, we kind of saw it a little bit. We were talking about this before the show with Washington last year when the Bruins played Washington and they had goaltending troubles of their own. So it does make a huge difference. And even if the Bruins don't play Carolina for some reason, I will certainly be watching, in the playoffs to see how much of a factor the goaltending is for Carolina.
Yeah, that's a big thing, and obviously the same question is with the Pittsburgh Penguins right now without Tristan Jarry. They're kind of facing the same kind of deal where, their goaltending now is a big question heading into the playoffs. Carolina, if Anderson's healthy and back and, fully ready to go, then obviously that's going to make things very difficult on the Bruins, and Anderson's had an unbelievably good year, but if he's not, I don't know if I trust Antti Raanta to be the starting goalie in a playoff series. He's been a career backup. He's never really played those big moments, those big games. I think that would be a big boost for the Bruins' chances if the Hurricanes have to play a backup goalie.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And this is where the Hurricanes are going to have to rely on offensive firepower. They certainly have it, as the Bruins have discovered this season. So I think it could very well be a case where literally the last team who scores in each game is the winner. I think the goaltending will be a factor for both teams, and I don't think it's going to be, quite frankly, in a positive manner. When you look at the Bruins and their up and down ways in terms of goaltending,
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point we want them to play better, and I want them to be consistent. But I think, what you see is what you're going to get. And the Bruins just have to be ready to, play well defensively and, have a solid offensive output. And it's very easy for me to say sitting in my chair here eating a snack, but that's the way I see it.
Yeah, no, and looking now, I'm looking at the Bruins goaltending. Obviously, Swayman is. I don't know. I think it's just been a long year. Like Swayman was so good for most of the season, but he's
Yeah.
never, played a season this long before in his life. This is his rookie first full season in the NHL. He's never played a year this long, and I think at times he has looked a little bit tired here towards the end of the year. Ullmark, though, continues to be phenomenal. His best hockey of the season. Linus Ullmark has won 8 of his last 10 decisions. Hasn't had a game with a save percentage below 900 since back at the end of March. So it's literally been a month now since Ullmark's had a game with a save percentage below 900. He hasn't given up more than 3 goals in a game since he gave up 4 against Anaheim back on March 1st. But every game since then, basically the last 2 months, he has not given up more than 3 goals in a game. And Ullmark, to me, has been the guy that down the stretch has kind of taken the reins in net for Boston. And certainly at this point, I think he's your game 1 starter for the Bruins, given the way that he's played. He's certainly been the Bruins' best goaltender over the last 2 months. And his overall numbers this season have been very, very solid. 25 wins, only 10 losses and 2 OT losses. 2.51 goals against average and a 914 save percentage. Very solid season for him. I think at this point now, if you're looking at Boston's goaltending, Ullmark is starting game 1 for the Bruins.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even when we signed him, we kind of joked, and I'll say it again here. This is a guy that won 9 games with Buffalo last year. And so we kind of knew that he was a very dependable, solid goaltender. He won 17 games the year before, last year, and then 15 games in 2018-19. So he is a very capable goaltender. I think oftentimes the word backup for a backup goaltender can sometimes be construed as a negative term, but the Bruins, to their credit, have done a good job. It was Yaroslav Halak a couple years ago. Now Ullmark, they've done a good job of penciling in solid backup goaltenders, and I would feel confident in Ullmark's ability in this case for the playoffs because, quite frankly, Halak did it well for a number of years as well.
Yeah. Bruins have had some good, backup goalies. If you even, I don't even know if you can count Ullmark really as the backup right now. I think he's kind of taken over, and then he missed that. He missed a little bit of time with that injury. Swayman did overall play fairly well while Ullmark was out for the most part. But then Ullmark comes back against the Rangers, holds them to 1 goal, then played Florida last night and held them to 2 goals, and Boston wins both of those games. So I think just Ullmark seems to be the guy that's rolling right now, and I think when you're going into the playoffs, you're going to play the guy that's rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. And, 2 weeks ago, we had the question where at the time, both of them were playing poorly, and we wanted to see somebody step up over the next couple of weeks. And Ullmark has been the guy right now. He's been playing really well. The win over Florida last night exemplified that. That is a very talented team and a team that, let's face it, you could potentially see in the playoffs. So it was really encouraging, and we'll get into this a little bit later, to see him, not just last night, but over this past week or so, really kind of play at a high level and get back to the level that we know he's capable of.
Yeah, and him being able to come right back from that injury and step in and still be Like he didn't miss a beat. He didn't miss a beat at all in that time that he was out. He came right back in, was still playing at a high level, has now won both games since his return, and very good numbers overall, holding Florida to 2 and the Rangers to 1. I mean, it's not like he
That's
got a
not easy.
win. It's not like he got a win, but it was 5-4. Like, no, he's like only giving up a couple goals max. So that's a very good sign. And I think, come playoff time, whoever's in net for Carolina, whether it's Ronta or whether it's Anderson back from an injury, I think you're going to see Linus Ullmark in net for the Bruins. And hopefully Ullmark can keep playing this well, that the way that he has. He's never played a playoff game before. 28 years old, but he spent his entire career in Buffalo. He never played a playoff game. So the Bruins, while obviously Swayman is a rookie and, a young guy that, inexperienced there, it's not like the other guy that they have who's older and a veteran guy has that playoff experience, because Ullmark doesn't. He's never played a playoff game in the NHL, even at 28 years old, because, he's been stuck in Buffalo for so long. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he handles the playoff pressure, I think.
I think it's going to be a big storyline of the series, goaltending for both teams.
Yep.
Can Ullmark play at a high level? And then for Carolina, can the Hurricanes get just enough to keep, the team in games? Because we know they have offensive firepower. It's going to be bend but don't break. I expect a couple leaks in terms of goaltending for the Hurricanes, but they do have the type of, playmakers to overcome it. And for the Bruins, I think it's a similar situation. I'm not expecting leaky goaltending because, like we said, Ullmark has been very good.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, the playoff experience is a factor. The Bruins do have, talent to score, and I think it's just going to be about who can bend but not break in that for either side.
Yeah, definitely. So Pro Hockey Rumors says that Anderson is expected to miss the beginning of the first round at least. So again, that's a Rumors website, so take it for what it's worth coming from a Rumors site. But they posted 18 hours ago that Anderson is probably going to miss the beginning of the first round. That's series changing right there. Now you've got Antti Raanta, career backup, starting game 1 for Carolina. And Carolina's a team that's been one of the best in the league all season long. I mean, this is not the time for your Vezina caliber goaltender to get injured. What I will say, Raanta is going to have to step up big, but what I will say is Carolina plays an extremely structured defensive game. So I think that's going to, really help out Raanta in net. Their goaltender isn't going to have to, he's probably not going to see 40 shots. Like they're going to do a good job of kind of shielding him as best as they can with their overall defensive game. And that will definitely help Carolina. But man, if you're the Hurricanes, that's a big, big loss.
That is a huge loss because it now places even more pressure on your defensemen. And, like you said, their play style is conducive to not allowing shots through. Mm-hmm. But even still, I mean, power plays are something that if I were the Bruins, I would make sure to get the most out of my chances, get as many shots to the net as possible. Taking advantage of, odd man situations if you're the Bruins is going to be huge if against the Hurricanes. So, I mean, I think for the Bruins, it's going to just be about making the most of Carolina's weaknesses, and I understand that's kind of a blanket statement, but we've talked about this before. You cannot take lightly any team or give them as many opportunities because they will convert them, and the Bruins have to make sure that they get opportunities to convert of their own and do so.
Oh, speaking of power plays, Boston hasn't scored a power play goal in a month, or pretty darn close to a month. So that's not good for Boston. Boston had a top 10 power play for most of the season. They've dropped to 17th in the NHL now in the power play. Just because this past month they literally haven't scored a power play goal in like their last almost 40 chances.
I wouldn't worry too much about that, only because playoffs are a different animal, and you were expecting to see people back and people healthy. So I mean, that's certainly not a trend you want to continue, but I would expect that to change come playoff time, because the Bruins, quite frankly, I think are going to need it.
Yeah, I just there's so many good teams in the East. I don't think you're beating teams of this caliber, like a Carolina, like a Tampa Bay, like a Florida, like a New York. Like you're not going to beat teams of that caliber having literally a nothing power play. Like if a power play can't give you anything, that's going to end up, I think, being a big problem because unless it's just a series that doesn't have a lot of penalties called and it's mostly 5-on-5, but I feel like not converting on chances like that is going to be a huge issue because you're just not going to get that many chances to really get the offense going and put the puck in the net. And if your power play is just an absolute nothing burger, like nothing happening, not helping the team whatsoever, all that does is help the other team and help feed them and make them look better. So.
And the Hurricanes were tops in the league in the regular season in penalty kill with just over 87%. So that certainly doesn't help the Bruins either. But, they're really going to have to try to figure out a way to get past that defense and, try to avoid the penalty kill. The Carolina Hurricanes, good penalty kill. Just, I mean, make sure plays develop in the Carolina zone if you're on offense. Get good looks. Don't try to shoot from, the top of the point. Try to drive towards the net, get bounces, get people in front of the net. I mean, they're going to have to do whatever it takes to try to, put to rest the good Carolina Hurricanes penalty kill.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. The special teams, I think, are going to play a factor, and Boston has got to find a way to get a power play. Honestly, if I'm the Bruins, these last two games, all I want to see is a power play goal. I want to see somebody score on the power play before the end of this regular season. You do not want to go into the playoffs like 0 for the last 45 on the power play. I don't think that's a good streak. That's going to make you feel good going into the postseason. I really want somebody to get a power play goal at some point in these last couple of games.
I mean, but then again, we as fans, think about these streaks and things like that in the regular season. I mean, I think as a team, they're probably looking towards a clean slate in the playoffs. They're probably saying, okay, this is a clean slate, new mindset. Sure, it's in the back of their heads, but I don't think it's going to be something that hangs over them. I mean, you obviously want to score on the power play, don't get me wrong, but I think they'll just continue to play their game and not worry too much about it. I would say, honestly, if they go into the playoffs and don't score a power play goal in the first couple games of the playoffs, then I think they'd worry. But in terms of regular season struggles, I don't really see them worrying about that too much because it's a new slate like we've talked about.
Mm-hmm. So the Eastern Conference as a whole, pretty good. Well, not just pretty good, extremely good this year. For the first time in NHL history, 8 teams from a conference have 100-point seasons. All 8 playoff teams in the East have 100 points this year, which is pretty crazy. Again, that's never happened in the NHL before, but Washington's at 100, Pittsburgh's at 101, Boston's at 105, Tampa Bay and the New York Rangers are at 108, Toronto's at 113, Carolina's at 114, and Florida wins the East with 120. I think it's pretty incredible to see this many great teams in the same conference this year. This many teams hit 100 points. And I think it just goes to show how difficult the playoffs are going to be and how tough it is going to be in the postseason because every team is good. Whether you're the 8 seed or whether you're the 1 seed, every team is good and every team is capable of beating all the others.
And it also gives credence to the fact that the Eastern Conference, is more of a high-powered scoring conference than the West. I mean, you look at, Florida, Tampa, Toronto, Boston, they all have, all of these teams have playmakers. The West we've talked about as having a more grind it, gritty play style, which works. I mean, we unfortunately saw it with with the St. Louis Blues in
Hmm.
2019 in the Stanley Cup, but it's been so fun to watch just in conference matchups because there's so many good young teams like Carolina, like Florida, and as a fan of hockey overall,
Hmm.
you know, even Toronto has been kind of, fun to watch as well, as much as that pains me to say. But as a fan, it's just been really exciting, and I definitely want to see that continue over into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, looking at no matchups in the East are locked in yet, which is also pretty crazy that we have 3 days left in the regular season and no matchups in the East are locked in. Now, hopefully, by the time we get to Friday afternoon, which is the last day of the regular season, when you guys are watching this, the matchups will be locked in. But right now, on Wednesday morning, nothing is locked in the East as far as matchups. Boston still could move up to that third spot. Washington could move up to the third spot ahead of Pittsburgh, potentially. And that would really shake some things up in the Metro if Washington does that. Then all of a sudden the Capitals play the Rangers instead of the Penguins, and Florida would play Pittsburgh instead of the Caps. So, I mean, still a lot could shift as far as that's concerned. It's just crazy how close the points are, the standings are, and the fact that we're this late in the year where teams literally have 1 or 2 games left and we still don't have a single matchup in the East locked in yet.
It's been a fun year all the way around. I mean, even from the beginning, and then seeing the Bruins, get on a hot streak after New Year's, and Florida and Tampa playing consistent hockey, and
Hmm.
Carolina really asserting themselves. It's been a fun year just in terms of the Eastern Conference alone.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And then not to mention everything going on out west and the massive playoff battle
Yeah.
in the West. But it's been a really good year, I think, for the NHL. It's been a lot of fun to watch. There's been a lot of good hockey. Scoring is way up. So, you've gotten those really exciting high scoring games. Players are putting up ridiculous numbers. Matthews scored 60 last night.
I
Austin
saw
Matthews
that.
becomes
Yeah.
the first U.S. born player to score 60 goals in a season and the first player in general in the NHL to do it since Steven Stamkos in 2012. So it's been about a decade since somebody scored 60, and Matthews does it this year. It's just been a really, really fun year, and I think we're setting up for what should be one of the best playoffs we've seen in a long time because the matchups across the board, no matter what they end up being, look like they're going to be incredibly, incredibly fun ones.
And quite frankly, it's what a lot of fans want too, right? High scoring games, 60 goal seasons. People love points, whether
Yep.
it's basketball, hockey. People love goals. People love points. People love touchdowns in football. I
Yep.
mean, they love to see action. And it's been a great year for action, a great year for hockey. And I can't believe that statistic you just said, the first U.S. born player to score 60
Mm-hmm.
by Matthews. That's crazy. That's crazy. But congratulations to him. I mean, I always personally thought he was a bit of a soft player, but hey, you know what? 60 goals, you can't take that away from him.
No, I think he's shown a lot of growth, I think,
Yeah.
this year. And
Yep.
it's going to make it really interesting in the playoffs because obviously with Toronto, that is the huge question. Everyone expects them to be great. Everyone knows that they're going to be good in the regular season. Like it doesn't what they do in the regular season really isn't what's important for them. They're expected to be one of the top teams, but they still haven't won in the postseason. It's been 18 years since Toronto's won a playoff series. Obviously, they're going to try and change that this year, but that's where all the pressure is. What are they going to do come postseason time? They're either going to play Tampa Bay or Boston. Obviously, we talked a lot about a Bruins Hurricane series because that's what it's looking like is most likely to happen. But if Tampa loses out and the Bruins win out, then all of a sudden you've got Boston, Toronto again. We saw it in 2018. We saw it in 2019. If we get another Bruins Leafs series, I mean, that could be crazy. And talk about building the rivalry even further.
Especially when you think about the last time these two teams played, and correct me if I'm wrong, or one of the last times when the Maple Leafs beat the Bruins on home ice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, the last time they played in the regular season is Toronto, it was way more one-sided. The final score, I think, ended up 6-4, but it was way more one-sided than that. Boston got a couple at the end to make it look somewhat close, but yeah, that was just back on a few weeks ago. I forget exactly which day. I know it was a Tuesday night. I guess it was back at the end of March. Yeah, March 29th. Toronto beat Boston in Boston 6-4. Bruins have not beaten the Maple Leafs this season.
Yeah, and that's a testament to the growth of the organization and to the growth of players like Austin Matthews. I mean, we as Bruins fans are, I'm not going to speak for you, but I can say I sometimes overlook the Maple Leafs. Historically, I've overlooked the Maple Leafs, but not this year. I mean, they with that win in Boston a couple weeks ago, they kind of said, "Hey, don't forget about us."
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they are a very talented team, and I could see this Maple Leafs team being the one to break the playoff series drought for them.
I definitely think they're capable. I've watched a lot of Leafs games this year. They're a very, very good team. Still questions about keeping the puck out of their net. They're going to need Jack Campbell to be at his best in the playoffs, but I think this is certainly a team that's capable. And whether they play Tampa Bay, whether they play Boston, it's going to be a very tough, hard-fought series. And Toronto's a very talented team again this year, and I think that they've got the ability to do it. It's just, can they get over that kind of mental block of winning in the playoffs, which they haven't been able to do. But at some point, it's going to happen, and this might be the year. It might not be, but they're certainly good enough to do it. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this Maple Leafs team could be the one that does it this year, and like I said, it all goes back to the growth of their young stars. Austin Matthews, like you said, really grew a lot this year. He found his game and took it to an even higher level. He was able to play at a higher level, and one of the frustrating things about him historically, prior to even this year, I guess you could say, was that you always felt like there was just a little bit more in the tank that he could get to that he never really got to. This year, he got to that little bit of extra oomph, and he was able to really shine and unlock his full potential and become a bona fide star in Toronto, even more so than he already was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think his defensive game has really picked up this year as well, which is, just rounding him out and making him a more complete player. And Toronto with a historical season for their franchise, 53 wins for the Leafs this year. I'm pretty sure that's their most in franchise history. They're third in the NHL in wins. They are fourth in the NHL in points with 113 right now. One game remaining for them, which happens to be against the Bruins Friday night, last game of the season for both teams. Last day of the regular season for all the playoff teams. And yeah, I mean, Toronto versus Boston would obviously be a very, huge series as well. I just haven't talked about it as much because I think it's much more likely we get Toronto, Tampa Bay, and Boston, Carolina, but there still is the mathematical possibility of it being Toronto versus Boston. And they play one more time this year, but Toronto's won both games so far. It's, I don't know, Toronto's looking like they could have... they could have it this year to finally be able to get it, but in the postseason, which they haven't been able to do, obviously, in a long time. But again, maybe we get to the playoffs and it's same old for the Leafs come postseason time. We don't know what we're going to see just yet.
The Leafs always leave us, with an aura of mystery, right?
Yeah.
you don't know which team is going to show up in the playoffs, and I'll be interested to see what they do because this team is very good. It's not just one player, it's the entire team. And, it's just another case where it speaks to how deep this Eastern Conference really is.
Yeah, it's crazy. Boston's a 50-win team this year, and they're a wild card. like you just don't see that. 50 wins and you're a wild card team, but there's 9 50-win teams in the NHL this season. which also I don't remember that ever happening before. Not in my lifetime that I can remember.
No, me neither.
Or no, hang on. Wins here.
Hold on.
Oh, there's 10 50-win teams so far. And if St. Louis wins one more, they get to 50. Those are so they could potentially. Oh, hang on, never mind. I'm looking at. Hang on, let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, so there's 9 50-win teams right now. If St. Louis wins one more game, which they only have one left, it's their last game. They could potentially make 10 50-win teams in the NHL this year.
Crazy, and it just speaks to how deep even the league is this year. I mean, playing in the Eastern Conference for the Bruins is like playing in the Western Conference of the NBA. The NBA Western Conference has always historically been deep, and the 50-win team is sometimes the 8th seed. That's what it feels like in the NHL this year. It really does.
Yeah, 6 of the 8 playoff teams in the Eastern Conference are 50-win teams. The only ones who aren't are Pittsburgh and Washington.
Crazy, absolutely crazy, and it's truly been a great year for hockey. And
big time.
And hopefully that translates into some good postseason matchups.
I think it is. I think looking at how these playoffs are shaping up, it's going to be one of the best playoffs in a while, I think, in my opinion. Every matchup is looking like it's going to be really, really good. And I mean, even some of the things that can change, like Rangers Penguins or Rangers Capitals, I really don't care which one it is. Like, they're both fantastic. Florida Pittsburgh, Florida Washington, either way, fantastic series. Toronto Tampa Bay or Toronto Boston, either way, I'm super excited for it. So just in general, I'm really liking all of these playoff matchups and what they're gonna, and the kind of series that they can give us in the first round. It looks like it's gonna be awesome.
There's stars in every single game. There's star power in every matchup, and I love that.
Yep.
I love that.
All right, so looking ahead here, Boston has 2 games left to finish out the regular season. Buffalo on Thursday night, Toronto on Friday night. Last 2 games. Buffalo's at home, Toronto's on the road. Obviously, the games aren't. I mean, Boston's locked into a playoff spot. It's not like they do or die games, but they still could move up if they win both and Tampa loses. I mean, overall, I think at this point, if you're the Bruins, it's got to kind of be focus on getting yourself ready to go for the playoffs. I think more than anything, that is the goal of these last 2 games, is to just make sure you're sharp, make sure you're focused, you're, in that right mental mindset and good physical health as well to be able to go and be ready for game number 1 in the postseason, whether that's May 2nd, whether it's May 3rd, whichever night they start. The Bruins have got to be ready to go for playoff time.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I think it would be about making sure everybody's healthy, because the Bruins are going to need all available weapons to be ready to go. I mean, and for these last 2 games, like you said, maybe a power play goal would be good.
That would be nice, yes,
for this team to kind of give them a little bit of momentum heading into the playoffs. And I'm just crossing my fingers for no injuries, a power play goal, and at this point, I would rather focus on those 2 things than seeding. I know seeding, there's still things in play in regards to the seeding, but with the bad luck that the Bruins have had over the last couple of weeks with injuries and the power play, I would rather see those 2 things accomplished than seeding, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be going like all out to try and get this third seed or third spot and play Toronto versus Carolina. I don't think it really matters. It's a tough matchup either way. I think much more important is just health, getting in the right mindset, making sure you're ready to go for game 1 of the playoffs, no matter who that's against. and being able to bring your A game come postseason time. Because I can tell you, with how good the Eastern Conference is this year, if you don't have your A game, you are not going to last very long. Because there's just way too many good teams in the conference that you're going to have to match up against. And if you're not firing on all cylinders, they're going to get you out of the playoffs pretty quickly.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before. How much does this current Bruins group have left in terms of, the big three? And I would hate to see an early exit with that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, you got Bergeron on an expiring contract in his late 30s now. I mean, that window is closing. So, an early exit, a first round exit in these playoffs would be tough, because that's, you're running out of chances with Patrice Bergeron. Let's just put it that way. There's no doubt about that. You're running out of chances with Patrice Bergeron. So, 100%. This is a very important playoffs for the Bruins, but at the same token, I also think it's going to be a very difficult one. It's not like years past where you can go in and kind of beat up on a couple of teams and, you're in the conference final and then it gets hard from there on out. But that's not the case this year. Like, every team in the East is a good one, and every team's going to be difficult to beat. So at the same time, like, I can see Boston getting out in the first round, and it's not even that they weren't good, or it's not that they didn't play well. It's just that they got beat by another team who's also really, really good.
Yeah, and it's kind of that difficult double-edged sword, But I'm just excited to see what this Bruins team does, because we've talked about teams of mystery,
Mm-hmm.
teams, you don't know what we're gonna get, and that certainly applies to this Bruins team. I mean, if you talk to us in November, we probably wouldn't even thought about the playoffs at this
Dude,
time,
I
but
was worried the Bruins weren't even going to make the playoffs in November.
and now, thanks to that hot start after January 1st,
Mm-hmm.
they're in the
Yeah.
playoffs. But I really don't know this Bruins team. I feel like we always say that when it comes to the Bruins and the playoffs, but you know, this team frustrates me some nights. This team looks like, a perennial Stanley Cup contender other nights. So we'll see which one we're gonna get.
Yeah, I mean, they could be out in the first round, or they could make a run to the finals. I could realistically see either one happening. But I could say that I think about every other team in the Eastern Conference.
Oh yeah.
Like, I feel like all 8 teams in the conference, it kind of feels the same way. Like, there are positives and good things with that team that I could see them going to the finals. But at the same token, if one thing goes wrong, or one goalie doesn't show up, or, it won't take much. Every team has questions too. There's no like perfect dominant team this year that's like, oh yeah, they got everything going for them. Every team has a lot of positives, and every team has questions too. And the entire East, like, I could see them losing in the first round and, almost pinpoint what went wrong for that to happen. And I could also see them going all the way, and could tell you, like, what goes right for them to be able to do that.
Last year there was, I kind of pinpointed the Bruins team as one with veterans but also a lot of youth. This year's team, I really, they do have a lot of veterans as well as youth, but last year, quite frankly, I thought they overachieved a little bit, to be
Hmm.
perfectly honest with you. And this year, I have no idea what to expect. I really don't.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
This is a very veteran heavy Bruins team this year.
It is, and that could be a good thing and a bad thing. And something I'm going to be watching for is, will the veteran heavy Bruins team, will that be an asset to the team in the later stage of the game because of the experience,
Hmm.
or will fatigue play a factor,
Yeah.
quite frankly, in the later stages of the game? Because if you look, and I'm just speaking because I know this so well, last year in the Washington Capitals series, the third period of each game and the third periods throughout the series were ones where I thought the Bruins were able to really assert themselves.
Hmm.
And I would love to see them kind of make that a trend for this year's playoffs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want to be playing your best hockey when it counts the most, and that's in the third period. Those are the periods that win or lose you series. very rarely in the playoffs. Most playoff games are close. Obviously, you always get the occasional blowout here and there, but most playoff games are close. And it means that you're basically winning or losing the game in the third period or overtime if it goes that far. We always see a bunch of overtime games in playoffs as well. You really want to be playing that well, playing your best at the end of games for sure.
And knowing this team, I would rather them, just not let things get out of hand the first two periods, and then really kind of, make a huge push in the third. Yes, I want them to play well, obviously. I'm not saying for them to completely fall flat, but, if they really just kind of made that a theme of their game to, kind of seal the deal in the third period, I would totally be okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the third period is definitely more important than the first. But you don't want to give up 4 or 5 in the first, and
right? Yeah.
Get out of, get completely blown out. But I think it's more important if you're down a goal or tied in the third period to know that you're going to win that third period.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying to take naps and read books in the first period, but definitely make sure that the third period is one of your stronger ones.
You can't win the game in the first, but you can certainly lose it. And the other thing, though, how many times this year have we seen the Bruins start the game well, get up 2-3 goals, and then blow it? And end up losing by 1, or so, like lose 3-2 or lose 4-3, something like that after a good first. I'd rather have them be good in the third.
And they lose it like the final 2 minutes a lot of times or something crazy.
That's happened a bunch of times.
Yeah, they kind of take their foot off the gas in the third period, and that's something that can absolutely not happen at all. That's basically kind of the opposite, or the backwards thing of what we just said. But I mean, I don't want them to, relax at all in the third period, especially because, when they relax, you can bet the other team's going to be playing extremely hard.
Yeah, 100%. So, all right, we are getting ready for postseason action. Boston either going to be playing Carolina or Toronto. Looks right now most likely Carolina for their first round matchup. And obviously that's going to be a very difficult series. The Hurricanes have been one of the best teams in the NHL all year long. However, the big kind of caveat in that is that Frederik Andersen is out with an injury. Looks like he probably isn't going to be ready for the start of the postseason. Maybe comes in at some point during round 1. Maybe isn't able to play at all. We don't know. There's not a lot of information out there onto the details of what's going on with Freddie Andersen. But if Carolina is without their starting goalie, that certainly is a benefit to the Bruins, unfortunately. You never want to see a guy get hurt, but it would certainly help the Bruins' chances if they don't have Andersen and Antti Raanta has to start in the playoffs for Carolina. But no matter what, no matter who's in goal, I think it's going to be a very difficult, hard-fought series. Carolina is a great hockey team, and they're certainly going to give the Bruins all they can handle. And I think the Bruins, if they show up and play the way that they should, are going to give Carolina a lot to handle as well as the underdog.
Absolutely. And, Rod Brind'Amour is a very good coach as well. We've talked about the players, but, we have 2 very good coaches, I think, in Rod Brind'Amour and Bruce Cassidy. These are playoff experienced coaches. They've been here before. They know they're not afraid to make adjustments, and, they have a very good understanding of the game of hockey and the ebbs and flows that go along with it. So, that's going to be fun to watch, the chess match between those two as well. It's going to be a chess match on the bench as well as on the ice.
Absolutely. So that brings us here to the end of episode 64. It's our playoff preview for the Boston Bruins. Again, playoffs start next week. The playoff schedule is not out, and nothing's out yet because we don't even know what most of the matchups are going to be yet. This season, it's really coming down to the wire right to the end of the year. But presumably the playoffs start May 2nd. Presumably the Bruins will either start May 2nd at the first night of the playoffs or May 3rd, which is the next night where all the series that don't start on the 2nd generally start the next night. So either way, early next week we should have playoff hockey, and I am very, very excited. There's just nothing like playoff hockey in the NHL. The whole game just goes to a whole new level. Watching it, sometimes it's not even like it's the same sport that you watched in the regular season. Like, it just kicks up to such a new level of intensity and aggression, and just everything in the playoffs is 1,000% more than the regular season. And it makes it really, really fun to watch. So I cannot wait for the puck to get dropped. But Danny, thank you for coming on again. It was awesome to have you, and I cannot wait for this postseason to start.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the players feeling the renewed energy on the ice. The fans feel it too, and they are always ready to go. Each barn is going to be rocking, and I can't wait. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. All right, guys. So here's the end of episode 64. Once again, I want to give a big thank you to Mark Allred and everybody at Black and Gold Productions. This show would not be happening without them. Also, don't forget about the links down in the description, whether it's Boston Bruins apparel, NHL apparel from any of the 32 teams, or NCAA college apparel. It is all there, so please check that out. That is going to do it here, our last show of the regular season. And we'll see what Boston can do in the playoffs. It's crunch time now. It's where it really matters. The second season is about to begin. Thank you guys again all so much for watching. See you guys soon, and go Bruins.